Welcome to Careers in Accounting. Today's guest is Zach Clem. Zach is an audit partner at PwC. Welcome, Zach.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you for
that.
having me.
I should also mention Zach is a board member for our Accounting Advisory Board, so he helps us think through current topics and things like that for our accounting curriculum. So, Zach, maybe to get started, talk a little bit about what an auditor does at PwC.
Yeah, there's an exciting side of it, maybe a little bit of boring to it, but a lot of fun. So, generally, I think of auditing as investors use financial information to get comfortable with how they make investments with companies. And so my job as an auditor is to provide assurance that those numbers are materially correct, right? So we're going through to say, they've presented they have cash on hand. Do they actually have that on hand? Now, that's what you see in form. What it takes to get to that deliverable is a lot of communication, a lot of relationships, a lot of work streams, a lot of project management. And so we get to see a lot of things within the business to be able to provide that comfort to the markets. And it's been great to get that experience and see and learn of the businesses.
Yep, and it's where the rubber hits the road, right? Because if the whole system falls down, if people cannot rely on numbers, the banking system, the investing public, everything is up for grabs if you can't rely on numbers.
The name of the game today is data. So a lot of questions about completeness and accuracy of data and how are investors using that information. So assurance is becoming more real time. But yeah, it continues to be the quality of that info.
Okay. So let's rewind a little bit. Let's take it back to when you were coming into undergrad, and what led you to go into accounting?
Yeah, so I thought I wanted to be a finance guy, but coming out of school in 2009 with the recession, jobs weren't fantastic. So I had taken an accounting class and really enjoyed it, thought I was okay at it, and managed to find a job at a regional accounting firm. And so I interned there, took a full-time offer, and then after a couple of years, I made my way to PwC, and it's been no looking back since.
Okay, excellent. So you've been in public accounting your entire career. Yeah. What is fulfilling about that role that you play? What has kept you there?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is the people and the stories. But I think, when I look at myself and why it is that I do what I do, I really enjoy serving other people. So you think about the problems that our clients have and needing resources and people with expertise to solve those problems. I don't like to think of myself as, the ultimate specialist, but I do have an ability to be a bit gritty and think through, okay, we have a new, unique problem here. What is it that we need to do? How do we think about it differently? How do we solve it? Letting the business operate, understanding they need to use their resources to go run a business. And so being able to be a resource for them has been very fulfilling for me. And then through that, having the experiences with the people, the relationships I've built, the quality of talent that we work with in public accounting is phenomenal. And I think of all of the people that are running large institutions from a finance accounting perspective and all of their backgrounds having originated in Big Four. It's really inspiring to me to know that we're doing things to develop people that end up being in some really prominent, important places.
Yep, that's great. And you and I haven't talked about this yet, but full disclosure, Zach and I worked at the same firm for a period of time. But I always viewed working in a Big Four firm as a partner level, as being very entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. And distinctive entrepreneurial from the perspective of, you could go out and chase work and develop new solutions for a new client. Yeah. But you do that under the safety net of the overall firm.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to pay the bills. You didn't have to keep the electric on, payroll. Yeah. And what you mentioned is the expertise that you could find within the firm. So I found that very comforting as opposed to pure entrepreneurial where you're the buck stops with you because you can't know everything. It's impossible.
Yeah, exactly. The people that, the road that was paved before me was full of experience and wisdom that we can then draw upon. I think to infrastructure that exists, the decisions of, in today's world, having relationships with OpenAI and Microsoft, to be able to have that available to make decisions. But then as a partner, in the audit practice of St. Louis, I have some autonomy to make decisions that make sense to me. One thing I thought of was, working with our acceleration centers overseas has been a priority across all of the accounting firms. And I saw what was a mandate to say, hey, we need to be utilizing this more, compared with what I thought was an experience as a pain point, and said, what can we do about this? And I didn't have to go to the very top, but I was able to build a team overseas that solely worked on our stuff. And so to navigate the here's a problem that we need to solve, to be able to go connect with people to say, hey, can we do this? Have we done this? And they get the buy-in for it. It really felt like an ownership type move to say, this is how I think a business could be run better, and be able to have some ability to make a change.
Yeah, you can also almost think of it as like you go out and hunt the problems, and you don't have an immediate answer there, but let me come back to you next week, and I'll bring somebody, or I'll bring some additional knowledge to the table to address that. Because you can find somebody in the firm that's dealt with that particular issue.
There is always an issue that has come up before, and it's just a matter of finding the experience and the right people to help with that.
So that one of the stereotypes in accounting is it's same as last year. It's repetitive. It's you're just sitting in a room cranking things out. So that type of solution solving doesn't sound like that at all. So can you, when you hear that it's same as last year, what comes to mind?
Yeah. I always tell the people I work with, like, we may not have gotten it right last year. So it's a continuous skepticism. It's a continuous curiosity as to, like, what is it that we see? What has changed? And how do those facts and circumstances change the way that we look at the problem and how we solve it? You think about something as easy as, a CFO leaves a company and they bring somebody new. Well, that doesn't mean that their processes stay the same verbatim. They have their own ideas and thoughts. Well, for us, that changes our risk profile. Where could things go wrong? And so, really having to kind of be on your toes, be intellectually curious as to whatever that problem may be, to provide a solution, I think is really important.
And that can be exciting as well.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and not knowing what you're going to be doing in 6 months exactly can unnerve some.
Yeah.
But it's energizing to know that I'm going to grow as a professional, and I'm going to deal with new things, or deal with a new set of facts if the client's facts change. That can be very exciting. Keep things fresh.
Yeah, no 2 days are ever the same for me. I may be at a client site solving a problem. The next day I then have a people problem that I'm working through. So it's all about sort of agility, flexibility, be able to kind of address, getting back a little bit to that entrepreneurial spirit. What's the problem today, and being responsible to come up with a solution there.
Yeah, that keeps the clients coming back as well, because they like that. Solve my problems. Yeah. So one of the great things about public accounting is just the training that you get, and the experience coupled with the experiences that you get make you extremely marketable. So can you talk a little bit, either personally or colleagues that you've seen and that have just great opportunities that come their way by virtue of starting their career in public accounting?
In my line of work, I've dealt with a lot of privately held companies, and so there's a lot of PE-backed capital in that space. And so I've had the opportunity to work with people in those businesses, have opportunities to have job offers in those specific businesses, and then my peers or colleagues, or even people that I helped develop that are sitting in those roles today. We were talking about it earlier. The CFOs that have come out of Big Four who maybe have just been on the audit side, learned accounting, but the CFO today is leading technology, it's leading deals, it's leading FP&A. You've also got an accounting, and so learning that skill set to then be at the top and have to have that cross-functional experience and expertise is really important. And what we've gotten in the experience or public accounting is a purview into that. I get to sit in the FP&A conversations about a deal. I get to see how treasury decisions are made based on what we've learned, what we see throughout a business. And so I have friends that are CFOs of businesses. I have friends that have started their own businesses. There are former public accountants that are CEOs of very large businesses. So it's a great opportunity to really learn holistically about things. And if you find something you're interested in, you can go learn a little bit more. Couple that all with the business experience, we get people into leadership positions very quickly. And so you learn how to build a team, you learn how to manage people, you learn how to project manage. And so those skill sets all kind of come together nicely to build some, high level functioning executives.
Yeah. So that couple of the training with the experiences, that makes you very marketable at the end of the day, because that's where these corporations, they don't grow these people from graduation. They hire from accounting firms in a great extent for all parts of their functions on the business side. So we all hear about the pipeline problem in accounting, that we don't have enough young people coming in and being interested in accounting. Can you talk about that from the perspective of an employer and what that means for you? And then also with the student, instead of it being an issue, on their side, it can be an opportunity.
Yeah. So certainly from a profession, it's known. I think the AICPA has reports out there that a large, substantial amount of CPAs are going to retire in the next 15 years. And so there's got to be a talent development process to replace those, because as we were talking, our clients aren't going away. Their problems aren't going away. And what I bring to the table, I don't want to call it wisdom, but experience of the things that I've seen, the problems that I've run across, we have to develop people to take over those reins. Eventually, I want to retire. I know I got a little ways to go, but having to develop those people to be able to serve our clients like that is really important. And so we view it as very much a problem that we need to be a part of. So you see things like our firm, specifically a destination CPA, we're trying to generate interest. But I then get to, if I'm sitting in the shoes of as a college student, thinking back to my position in 2009, I wanted to do finance, but the market didn't dictate that at that point. And so it was an opportunity there. But I do think as private equity is getting more competitive, both from a deal side, but also talent, it's not just finance accounting, it's MBAs, it's economists, it's a lot of engineering with, large language models. The competition's fierce. And so to have a way to get into the room with where these things are happening and what you can bring to the table, accounting almost brings kind of a counterposition fact to the table right now that I think is really unique. And I just hope people aren't overlooking it, because as I sit here today, we get to sit in the rooms. We have celebrations with our clients on successful deals, and we really do get to participate in the successes of those firms. And so it's been a great opportunity to have access to those people.
Yeah. The complexity you talk about and the change, right? There's change in the United States from the administration, from the tax side and the regulatory side, but there's change globally as well. And these companies, these large companies, the change is just the constant noise that they're dealing with, and they need people to help them manage that. Yeah. And so I tend to chuckle sometimes when people think it's like accounting's going to get automated or it's going to be all just very straightforward. There's nothing straightforward about it. And so you couple that with the people that are doing it today are looking towards the finish line, there's an opportunity for people to step into that role, and it can be extremely rewarding intellectually and financially.
Yeah. And they talk about in today's world, and I say they, it's the stuff that I listen to on my own time, but careers might turn into something shorter than a 30 or 40-year career. So if you think of a 5-year window or a 10-year window where you have access to learn these businesses inside and out, you have access to the executives, you have access to the board members, let you know what they're thinking as far as this business goes. You got a nice 5 to 10-year window to then take that expertise and go do something different. What did you learn about this business? And can you go build your own business? Can you take it then and correlate it into, strategic, finance restructuring? Like how would you build an AI workforce, right? And take that experience, the wisdom, to go out there and create something new, I think is going to be an interesting dynamic as to how it changes. But it's changing. It's AI's here. At this point, it's let's take advantage of the opportunity we have, understand people are going to lead the way, and how do we all collaborate together to make sure we're all pushing each other forward, and ultimately serving our clients, because they're experiencing the same problems, the dynamic situations globally. And so, they need people to help.
Yeah, you don't want too simple, too straightforward. Yeah. They don't need help. So let's talk a little bit more about AI. There's a lot of angst on campus about articles every day about white-collar jobs for young people. It's eliminating them, right? Dire circumstances. Can can you talk a little bit about how PwC views AI and how it helps with the problem we just talked about of talent coming in and helping them be efficient?
Yeah, I mean, we are a people business, and we've acknowledged that from the beginning. And as we sit here today, the people are going to be the future. It's how we equip people with the technology to help our clients. Things will change, but I do think, in my own personal perspective, the competencies that will need to exist, what are the skill sets that people will need to have in the future? I don't think communication and relationships are going away. I like to think that I hate talking to bots on phones, and I know that's going to get better, but the desire to have a human interaction, I think, remains important. And then really curiosity in the sense of, I'll call it continuous learning as well. I can ask AI to do something, but at this point today, I have to understand what I'm asking of it. Thinking about risks of AI, I have to be able to validate the things that it's saying or telling me. And so being able to take a step back, be skeptical, and say, do I really understand this? Almost as if you're a professor, to say, how would I teach this to other people? Having that sort of mastery of the information, I think, is going to be really important. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But I've said this about technology. I want to be the person helping inform other people and technologies on what to do, not being told what to do by the technology. And I think that's still the fact today.
Yeah, I think there's a misperception amongst young people that what an accountant does is very black and white, and there's always a rule that applies. Yeah. And many of the things that I anticipate you're doing, and what I did was a gray area. Yeah. That there wasn't exactly something on point either. Messy facts or rules, or just unclear areas where you're applying judgment, and you're talking about pros and cons to an executive, and that can't be automated.
No. You're gonna have to bring that experience and what you've seen, other clients, other industries, what's applicable, and risk factors.
And how do we manage it, right? Exactly. Just like they do everything else on the income statement. They manage sales, they manage the risk with sales and operations. You can do that for everything.
Yeah, and most importantly, being able to communicate that story. Yeah. Being able to understand what somebody's telling you as their problem. They may not tell you what the actual problem is, but to be able to see through, like, hey, if you're not thinking about this, maybe that's what you need to be thinking about. Certainly an accelerator from an AI perspective, but you're going to have the relationships.
One issue that I think students feel as well with accounting is busy season, and the perception that there's real peaks and valleys. Like you're working crazy hours for a certain period of time, and then other times you're not nearly as busy and twiddling your thumbs. From a work-life balance perspective, and how do you manage that? How do you have responsibilities outside of PwC? How do you fit everything together?
My wife holds down the fort. She's incredible with that. But I think of flexibility today very much. I don't know if holistically is a bad way to describe it, but it's not a day-to-day type of assessment. It's sort of, what is it that I need to accomplish? I use the example of, if I got to go to the dentist office, I have a lot of autonomy to say, this is how I can fit this into my day, because I can't go to a dentist at 7 p.m. So being able to kind of manage my schedule through where my clients need to be met, where my people need to be met is very helpful. And I think technology, world post-COVID has really changed that. But as I think about specifically busy season, and I think about accounting versus other professions, yes, busy season's busy. It's a volume game, but it's manageable, understanding that we have teams. There are always things that come up that we have to work through. And you think about running a business, if a problem comes up, you need to work to solve it. But I would tell you that from an accounting and audit perspective, it's predictable. At times, I think of private equity where a deal comes up at any point in time, it's a sprint right off the bat. So it's good from a predictability perspective. And then I get back to what allows the success of the flexibility. It's communication, it's leadership, it's coordination, it's having evidence of serving your clients to understand things are going to get done even with how our schedules may change or where we may be located at.
I was feeling this when I left public accounting, and I'd be interested in your current views. But I think one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is us really learning how to work remotely efficiently.
Yeah.
And what that does from a peaks and valleys, there's going to be peaks and valleys in anything. If you have a client that's doing a deal, you're busy. If I had one and I was a tax, people were busy as well. And you're a professional. You deal with that, right? You know there's peaks and valleys. But smoothing those out by virtue of being able to pull resources from different cities is vastly different now than what it was pre-pandemic, because we're so much better at it. And just that ability to kind of just share workloads around. So you can pull somebody in from Cincinnati to help that may have some time that can help, and you don't have to just crush the St. Louis based team.
Yeah, you throw in other countries as well. So you have something like India that's on the exact opposite schedule, and so you can have things that get done overnight. But I do think, one of the learnings out of, COVID, work from home situation was very much like, okay, we don't see people in a room every day. I might not be able to, raise my hand and shout out something of like, hey, what are you working on? But developing sort of expectation and processes and tools where we can understand, hey, this is what I need. This is what I want to understand. Please communicate. And having that dialogue is really important. And I also think it helps with clients too. You think about, for us, getting information from clients remotely is a lot better at this point. We're not having to go out to our clients for every audit period. So the flow of information and communication has really improved. And I think that really helps with the flexibility too. My wife joked that she wasn't sure what I did every day. And when I worked from home, she actually saw it and understood.
Funny. Let's shift to compensation, because this is on the mind of students as well, is starting salaries. They can find that information on the marketplace, and historically, accounting's been a little bit lower than other business majors. I feel like that's changing. The stuff that I'm seeing and hearing, that starting salaries are becoming more competitive. But talk about just like your experience of coming in through the ranks, and then maybe your team that you're seeing and sitting in on compensation meetings. You don't have to give us numbers, but I'm just interested in like, what is a 3 to 5 year accountant that's highly rated? How do they compare to maybe other professions in your view?
Yeah, so I kind of go to my experience historically, and where I started versus where people are starting today. And then also not just the dollars, but the speed at which people are progressing. So when I started at the firm at PwC, it was a 6-year process to manager. We've now gotten that down to 5, and that may be better aligned with markets, but I do think that there's been a catch up of experience of we're getting to that point quicker, but we're jumping the salary to the same band that it once was at year 6. So the compensation is happening a bit faster. The actual numbers, there was clearly a war on talent, COVID, post-COVID, and I think that was challenging from a business perspective. How do we continue to evolve our people? How do we find other ways to pay other than salary? But salaries were good for individuals. And so I think it's been really good there's been a lot of momentum in the last 5 years as far as starting salaries go. As you progress, I always tell, like, my story was patience. I never got early promoted. And then I finally made partner at a certain period of time. And so compensation took a different meaning to it. But, I always tell people the curve on when you're in public accounting always seemed to be very quick versus, I'll call it, industry, where you have a runway that can go pretty high. And you think about how partners are compensated, it's very nice. But just being patient to have that foresight into, okay, there are opportunities here. The pay is going to go along with it the longer you stay. A 3 to 5 year career in public accounting, not only I think pays well, but the experience you get out of it's incredible to then parlay it into, those roles we were talking about previously.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying about the year-over-year steepness of the curve, if you will, is because assuming you perform well, then you get identified as your potential future leader of the firm, and they want to keep you around. Yeah. And so one way they can do that is to sprinkle dollars.
Yeah. So. And then you talk about all the other benefits that we have with. I think of CPA exam bonuses. I think of, we have milestone rewards for the tenure that you stay. all the way to, for me personally, it's been a lot of health related items, family planning stuff. Like the benefits that a large firm like PwC brings to the table is quite incredible. And so I also tell people, make sure you're thinking holistically. Like it's not just today, it's what does tomorrow hold, and what do the comp packages kind of bring overall.
Fantastic. Last topic. Students, besides focusing on just their technical skills, and this can be accounting or any business major, just learning the core technical merits of your particular path, what other things that, now that you've been in the profession for a while, do you think young people could start practicing or focusing on developing now, knowing that it would serve them better, their future selves better in the professional world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I alluded to it a bit, but I think clearly mastering the material is important. You have to have an understanding of what it is we bring to the table from an accounting, tax, finance transformation. If you make your way into consulting, you have to have an understanding of that. But I think with AI, and you think what the technology does from an accelerator perspective, you need to have skills to be able to break down complicated things, to communicate those things. And then I alluded to it as well, the curiosity, which is, I may not know how to do this thing, but I've learned in course that I have to figure out what's going on here and produce a result based on what I understand. I'm going to be able to draft a paper with AI in the workplace. But I need to understand what it is that thing is saying and how I advise my clients. So I think the curiosity to learn it, to then be able to communicate it, is going to be really important. And I'm a firm believer that those relationship skills are really going to set people apart. You think of selling, you think of being able to communicate effectively, executive presence. It's going to be really important for those. So if I'm giving advice to a college student right now, it's stay connected to your peers. Stay connected to your professors. You may not know where they come from or what connections they have, and use this as an opportunity to get better. It's not solely about learning accounting or economics. It's about, what did I do to get better at that skill? Because that may not be the skill you're working on in 5 years, but you've learned the process.
That's great advice. It's a great place to start that. You can start today, because I think it's a lifelong, career-long objective to improve in certain communication aspects. But you can practice that here in a nice, safe environment. Nobody's going to get upset. Nothing bad is going to happen. You're not going to have an upset client. But dealing with peers, leading a group project, things like that, as opposed to sitting in the classroom, you're tired, and just doing your thing. You can't do that in the professional world. You have to be open.
Take advantage of the opportunity. A lot of resources, a lot of people. You will learn if you put yourself out there and you dig in, and what you can come out of it as opportunities on the other side is incredible.
Okay. Zach, thank you. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts to our audience.
Thanks for having me.